Yo, what is going on, guys? Today I got a juicy Templar build I want to show you. So without further ado, let's jump right into our race. For our race of choice here, it will be Dark Elf. Dark Elf is just one of the best races in the game right now, and I highly recommend running it. Just for the pure damage and max stats that this race gives you, it's just too good to pass up. Other races that will work well will be Imperial for sustain, Breton for more sustain as well. You can run High Elf for some sustain and damage, Nord for more tankiness. Alright, let's jump into our attributes. We put 44 points into mag, 20 into health, and 0 into stamina. This gives us 22,000 maximum mag, 30k health, and 17k stamina. Our mag recovery will be 1200, with our stamina recovery being 1200 as well. 5100 spell damage, 15% spell critical, 4600 pen, 17k physical and spell resist, with 1800 crit resist. Our stats fully buffed up will be 7k weapon damage, 2400 mag and stamina recovery, with 30% spell critical and 26k physical and spell resistant. For our Mundus stone here, it will be the Apprentice. This is simply for the most damage. You can run whatever Mundus you want here. I just ran the Apprentice for the damage it gives me. You can run the Shadow for some extra crit damage, even though I don't think it's worth it. The Lady for more tankiness, the Atronach or the Serpent for more sustain. It's totally up to you. I just chose the Apprentice just simply because I like the raw damage it gives me. Smoke Bear Haunch will be the food of choice. If you are poor and do not have the money for the premium Smoke Bear Haunch food, you will need to cough up some coin for some Jewels of Mistral. Jewels of Mistral is basically Smoke Bear Haunch. It's just slightly worse in every way, but it's totally worth it if you don't have the money. Very minor in terms of stat difference, so you don't have to worry about that. Vampire Stage 3 is a must for every PvP build. That is simply because of this passive right here, Undeath. Undeath reduces your damage taken by up to 30% based on your SP. This is one of, if not the most important passives for PvP, just simply because of how tanky this makes you. So Vampire Stage 3 is a must for every PvP build. Our advanced stats are 4900 into break free, 3500 into roll dodge. Our block costs 1600 on our front bar, and on our back bar it's 988. Our crit damage is 6%, and our critical healing is 6% as well. For our first set, our monster will be the Warp. If you don't want to run Warped, you can run Battleground here instead. I like Warped because I just think Battleground is not that good of a set compared to something like Warped here, where it just gives you so much overall sustain. So I just recommend Warp over Battleground. But if you want more damage, you definitely can run Battleground instead. Just totally up to you. Our back bar set here will be Wretched Vitality. I chose Wretched just because I love the amount of sustain that this set gives me, and allows me just to push everything else into damage besides my monster set. But like I said, you can run Battleground there and you'll be fine. I just like the extra sustain with Wretched Vitality, so it's just a personal preference thing. The main thing that makes Wretched really good is it gives you basically 400 magicka and stamina recovery whenever you proc a major and a minor buff or debuff. Can be either or, and that's just so stat dense, so I highly recommend running this just because of the pure amount of stats that Wretched Vitality gives you. For our shield here, you do want to run a maximum magicka glyph for more healing on the back bar. Sturdy is the best trait for a shield in my opinion, because you want to reduce the cost as much as possible. And then for our sword here, I like power with restore stamina. And the reason why I went with restore stamina is just because I want some extra stamina so I can block a little longer on the back bar. And powered or defending for your sword here, it will work. Either one is very good. It just comes down to personal preference. Our front bar here will be deadly. Deadly increases the damage to your damage over time and channel abilities by 15%. This is basically all your main damaging abilities. It's very good for your build. But another set that you can run here is Mechanical Acuity. If you don't want to run Deadly, both sets are very good, and it's just kind of personal preference. Deadly is more consistent damage, where Mechanical has higher burst. Totally up to you. Both sets are very good on the Templar, and I would choose either one. We're running two maces here, one charge, one Nirnhone, one restore stamina, and one restore magicka. This is simply for more sustain. If you have the money, I definitely recommend running poisons here instead. Poisons are just so good if you can afford them, and they're just too good to pass up. So I definitely recommend running poisons here over these enchantments if you can run them. And then for our mythic of choice will be Sea Serpent Coil. I chose to run this mythic just because it gives you 10% increased damage, and it gives you 430 weapon and spell damage, which is just so good for your burst combo, and allows you to demolish your opponents because that extra damage is just so massive. If you don't like the 40% stand that this gives you, there are ways around it, such as bunny hopping or not healing yourself to full health all the time so you don't get the 40% snare. Or you can just run a completely different mythic entirely, which would be something like Death Dealer's Fate. I would recommend that mythic if you don't want to run Sea Serpent Coil. Marking is also fine. It just comes down to if you want to deal with the snare or not. I do think dealing with the snare is definitely worth it because the amount of stats that this mythic gives you is just too good not to run it. And for our other jewelry here, will be all infused spell damage glyphs here for the maximum amount of damage we can pump. And for our last piece will be one piece trainee, reinforced prismatic glyphs. Our armor pieces are running 3 heavy on our chest, helmet, and shoulders, 3 medium, hands, legs, and boots, and a light waist. These are all impen, and these 3 are reinforced. So 3 reinforced and 4 impen. These are also all prismatic glyphs. If you don't have the money to buy all prismatic glyphs, you should get them on the big pieces at least. So that would be your helmet, chest, and legs. At least get these with prismatic glyphs, and then you get prismatic glyphs on your smaller pieces later when you have the money. But until then, just put maximum magicka glyphs on your smaller pieces here until you can afford getting prismatic glyphs on all your big pieces. Onto our skills here, Biting Jabs. Biting Jabs will be our main damaging ability for this build. It also grants us major brutality and major sorcery, increasing our weapon and spell damage by 20% for 10 seconds. This is stamina, by the way, so keep that in mind. But this is a very hard-hitting skill. Reduce the enemy movement, which is very nice, and it grants us our buff to major sorcery and major brutality. Living Dark will be the flex spot for this build. If you want some major expedition, you will have to run Race Against Time here, or you can run the vampire version, which is Elusive Myth, instead of Living Dark. Or if you don't want to switch out Living Dark, because this is a very massive heal, you can sacrifice Major Savagery here. This is one of the reasons why Mechanical is very good on Templar, because it allows you to drop Vampire's Bane here and get Major Savagery while still running Tripod. So if you are running Mechanical here instead of Deadly Aim, then what I would do is I would drop this one for the mobility skill. But if you are running Deadly, I think you have to drop Living Dark to get the mobility skill. Purifying Light, I chose this morph because we already have minor and major breach from our back bar sword and shield skill. And this one just gives you a nice heal over time, which just gives you extra survivability. Also one of the reasons why I think it's okay to drop Living Dark. Vampire Bane, as I mentioned earlier, this gives us major savagery and prophecy for 32 seconds, increasing your weapon and spell critical rating by about 10%. Also gives you a nice dot. You pretty much want to keep this up 100% of the time. And then Radiant Oppression here. This is another skill that you can technically flex out if you still want the heal. But I just think the skill is too good not to run because the execute is it is the best execute in the entire game. This thing will shred people. It cannot be dodged. All it takes is 1 or 2 ticks from this thing when they're under 30% health and they just go poof and goodbye and welcome to the afterlife they go. This is a very strong execute and I definitely recommend running it, and it's very fun and easy to use. Breaker is funny, that is our only sign for this build, so just keep that in mind. This is just a massive bread and butter ultimate for a lot of classes. Great AoE, has a very good dot. Definitely recommend running using it. And a quick side note here, since Biting Jabs is our source of major brutality, you want to make sure you're using this every 10 seconds. That's a very important note. So let's say you're low, you want to switch to your back bar. You still want to jabs once you get the brutality and then switch to your back bar. So you still have major brutality and sorcery for all your healing. It does take some time to get used to, but once you get it down, it works just fine. Honor the Dead here, amazing spammable heal, and it's pretty good on their sustain. Since while you heal anyone who's below 75% health, you restore 18% of the ability's cost every 2 seconds over 6 seconds. So you basically get 60% of the ability back as long as you use it while you're below 75% health, which is the only time you should be using this. This allows this ability to be spammed a lot more since it does not cost that much when you use it below 75% HP. Piercing Armor, this is what procs our Wretched Vitality very consistently on our back bar. It also gives us major and minor breach, which is 9,000 penetration. So that's very good. That increases our damage exponentially. It's about 18% overall more damage just from running this one skill. So it's a must. Plus it makes proccing Wretched Vitality very easily. Resolving Vigor, this gives us minor resolve and a very fatty heal. Extended Ritual, this cleanses 5 negative effects immediately, heals you and your nearby allies for 3,000 health every 2 seconds for 30 seconds. It's a very good ability. It cleanses 5 negative effects. Channel Focus here, this increases your physical and spell resistance 6,000. You also recover 241 magic every 1 second over the duration, and while the rune is active, you heal for 540 health every 1 second, scaling off your max HP, so another heal. And if you stand within the rune, you also increase the healing by 200%. So if you need to really heal, you just pop Vigor, Extended, pop down the focus here, and you just hold block and spend Honor of the Dead, and you get a lot of healing over time. So you stack that with Living Dark and you basically become an unkillable god. And then for our ultimate will be Spell Wall here for our Sword and Shield. This allows you to automatically block all attacks at no cost and reflects all projectiles cast you for 7 seconds. This is kind of like your oh shit button, where if you're under a lot of pressure, you just pop this bad boy, and for 7 seconds you basically become an unkillable god. The only problem is that this doesn't basically do any damage, but when you do need to survive those tight-knit situations, this ultimate allows you to do that just fine. Onto our CP, we're running Ironclad for more tankiness, Massed Arms, Thermocharge, and Biting Aura for the most overall damage. On the build, if you want some more healing, you can run Focus Mending, or if you want a more balance of both, you can run Untamed Aggression, totally up to you. For our red tree here, we're running Pain Refuge, Sustained by Suffering, Relentless, and Survival Instinct. Survival Instinct gives you great sustain. Relentless, being stunned or feared, causes you to gain major protection for 3 seconds, reducing your damage taken by 10%. This is very good because the majority of the time you'll be taking a fatty amount of burst damage is when you're CC'd, you're not able to block, roll, or heal. This allows you to basically not die as easily in those situations. Definitely recommend picking this up. Sustained by Suffering and Pain Refuge here. These both will only proc when you have a negative effect, but even though you have a purge that can cleanse 5 negative effects, I still think it's worth running because in PvP, and especially if you're in an outnumbered situation, there will always be negative effects on you. There's just too many to count in PvP. So Sustained by Suffering will always be procced, and same with Pain Refuge, so I definitely still recommend running these. And then for our green tree here, we Warmount, Gifted Rider, Master, Liquid Efficiency, and Breakfall when you slip off those slippery edges. I want to demonstrate quickly how to play the build. Basically, you always want to stop at proccing Piercing Armor, because this does proc your Wretched Vitality on your back bar. And you want to pop Vigor, make sure you're in your Ritual, and in the Channel Focus, twist your front bar, put everything on your opponent. You just put Purifying Light, Vampire's Bane, and Living Dark. You just auto attack, jab spam. And when you think they're low, you go for the Dawnbreaker into the Oppression, and that's pretty much it. It's a relatively simple build. You have your oh shit button on your back bar, the spell wall. You're gonna get yourself in a tight knit situation where you can't wiggle your way out of. That is the ultimate you want to use. But otherwise, you just want to be as aggressive as possible. Go for the Pierce here. Make sure Purifying Light is always on your opponent, so you have the additional burst it gives you. And you just auto attack, and also make sure Vampire Bane's up for the major Savagery and Prophecy it does give you. You just want to auto attack, jab spam. You get low on HP, you go for the Dawnbreaker of Smiting into the Radiant Oppression here, which does do 20,000 damage over 1.8 seconds. If you guys do have any questions regarding the build, I'll be happy to answer anything down in the comments below. And if you did find this video helpful, it would mean a lot to me. Hit that like button and subscribe. And with that, I hope you guys all have a fantastic day.